walking behind the coffin of his mother when he was just 12 years old. His grandfather asked him to do that. That gave him a bucket load of anxiety for very many years. And he's fallen out with his brother for reasons that we can't talk about on the telly because otherwise you'll get sued, so let's not do that.
Kay Burley's words should have been a rare admission that slipped through the cracks of the media fortress built around the British royal family, a truth that Harry was not treated well by his own blood. It was an acknowledgment, however fleeting, that the youngest son of Diana and Charles bore the brunt of neglect, cruelty, favoritism, and callous disregard from those who should have stood beside him. But instead of holding that truth with any honesty, Burley, like so many of her colleagues and like the royal institution itself, pivoted instantly to blame Harry, accusing him of betrayal not for any crime but for daring to speak aloud the reality of his abuse. That single rhetorical maneuver reflects everything rotten at the core of the monarchy and its media enablers, a system where cruelty is normalized, silence is demanded, and when silence is broken, the victim is condemned while the perpetrators are shielded. To admit Harry was not treated well is to admit what has long been obvious. From childhood he was cast into the shadow of his brother William, the heir elevated at every turn, while Harry, the spare, was positioned as expendable. The palace, the press, and even family members themselves enforced this cruel hierarchy with ritualistic precision. William's missteps were airbrushed. Harry's were magnified and distorted into scandal. William's temper was excused as passion. Harry's defense of himself was painted as rebellion. When Diana died, it was Harry who was forced at the tender age of 12 to walk behind her coffin in a grotesque public spectacle, expected to perform stoicism for a nation even as his soul shattered. He was told to be silent, told to endure, told to suppress grief and anger and fear. This pattern of demanding his silence while denying him compassion became the template for how his family would treat him for decades. Burley's attempt to frame Harry as wrong for finally refusing to be silent exposes the double standard that defines both the monarchy and the media. When royals leak, brief, and plant stories against one another, the system shrugs. When William quietly feeds negative stories about his brother to secure his own image, the media obligingly looks away. When Charles cultivates the press at Harry's expense, spinning narratives of the troubled younger son so that the heir to the throne appears strong, it is accepted as strategy. Yet when Harry and Meghan dared to take control of their own narrative, to correct the lies, to defend themselves publicly, it was treated as treason. Burley's rebuke was not about manners or family honour. It was about preserving a system in which only the palace and its press courtiers are allowed to speak. Harry's crime, in their eyes, was not his behaviour, but his independence. The rot at the centre of this dynamic is William, who has long carried himself as judge and jury over his brother. The future king, moulded in entitlement and shielded from consequence, expected Harry to play the role of supporting character in his story. Harry was permitted to be the naughty but harmless younger sibling, the jester whose antics made the heir look good by contrast. But he was never permitted to be a man of depth, principle, or agency. When Harry's military service earned him respect that eclipsed his brother's indolence, resentment grew. When Harry's bond with the public outshone William's carefully managed stiffness, jealousy took root. And when Harry built a life with Meghan, a woman who brought charisma, intellect and compassion that threatened to expose the blandness of William and Kate, the knives came out. William chose not to protect his brother from press abuse, but to join in orchestrating it. For William, Harry's suffering was not tragedy, but strategy. The family's cruelty metastasized into institutional betrayal. Instead of addressing the racism, harassment and slander Meghan faced, the palace allowed it to fester. Instead of correcting the record when lies were spread about Meghan's supposed feud with Kate, they allowed Harry and Meghan to be sacrificed to protect the Crown's favourites. It was open season on the Sussexes, and the silence of the family was complicity. Harry understood this. He endured it as long as he could. But at some point, silence becomes self-erasure, and he refused to erase himself or his wife. The very act of standing up, of speaking truth, became the supposed betrayal. Burley's scolding crystallizes this. The demand was never for harmony, it was for obedience. Harry refused obedience, and so they branded him the problem. The hypocrisy is staggering. The same press that lauds William for promoting mental health awareness shames Harry for speaking about his own. The same institution that cloaks itself in the rhetoric of duty punished Harry for refusing to let his duty become a noose. The same family that expects the public to see them as a model of morality devours one of its own with cold indifference. And yet, time and again, it is Harry who is told to apologize, to reconcile, to come back into the fold. William freezes him out for years, and still Harry is blamed for the estrangement. Charles chooses crown over child, and still Harry is painted as ungrateful. It is a theatre of inversion, where cruelty is loyalty and truth is betrayal. Kay Burley's casual cruelty mirrors the institution she covers. She acknowledges Harry's mistreatment, but not as a call for accountability. Instead, she weaponizes it into a justification for further mistreatment. This is how abuse is sustained, by gaslighting the victim into believing that their injury is less offensive than their refusal to remain quiet about it. The monarchy thrives on this dynamic. It has for generations. Diana, too, was told to keep quiet, to accept humiliation, to play her role. When she spoke, she was condemned. Harry learned the lesson: silence serves only the abuser. That he chose to speak is not betrayal, it is liberation. Burley's framing is not journalism but complicity in abuse. The deeper sickness here is cultural as much as institutional. The British monarchy survives because its subjects are taught to venerate the crown more than truth, to defend tradition, even when tradition masks cruelty. The press, parasitic and desperate, enforces this by punishing anyone who threatens to disrupt the fantasy. Harry's refusal to live as sacrificial spare undermines the myth of royal unity, and therefore must be painted as selfishness. But in truth, what he has done is expose the fragility of a system built on silencing its own. William cannot appear noble without Harry appearing disobedient. Charles cannot appear dutiful without Harry being cast as reckless. The monarchy cannot project stability without scapegoats, and Harry has always been the convenient target. That is why Burley's words matter. Not because she revealed some shocking truth. Harry's mistreatment has been obvious to anyone who dares to look, but because she revealed the instinctive rot of the institution. Admit just enough cruelty to appear honest, then pivot to blame the victim to keep the edifice intact. This is the cycle Harry broke by refusing silence. He shattered the script. He demanded that the abuse be named for what it was, and for that, the full weight of the monarchy and its media echo chamber came down upon him. But history is not on their side. For all the smear campaigns, all the headlines, all the scolding pundits, Harry's truth continues to resonate because it is rooted in lived experience. People know what it is to be scapegoated by family. They know what it is to be silenced, to be told their pain is less offensive than their refusal to hide it. In Harry's defiance, there is recognition, and in the family's cruelty, there is revelation. The royals are not paragons of virtue, but architects of hypocrisy. They would rather cannibalize their own than confront their failures. They would rather sacrifice the son who speaks truth than confront the heir who perpetuates lies. Kay Burley may think she was delivering commentary. What she was delivering was confession, that the monarchy is rotten, that the heir is protected while the spare is destroyed, and that truth will always be punished in a system built on silence. Harry's choice to reject that silence, to stand against abuse, to refuse to carry the sins of his family in secrecy, is not betrayal. It is integrity. And every time the institution and its mouthpieces blame him for daring to speak, they reveal themselves as the villains they have always been. This is the legacy of Kay Burley's statement, not the smear she intended, but the truth she inadvertently laid bare. That Harry's only crime was courage, and that his family's cruelty is the only betrayal worth naming. No amount of media gaslighting can conceal that forever. The monarchy rots from within, and Harry's refusal to be complicit is the light that exposes the decay. To all my curious family, thank you all for watching, and do not forget to subscribe, like, and put a comment. Bye-bye, see you then in the comment section.